Hello again everyone, welcome back to DIY The Art of Wood. I'm Jeremy. Well, the feature wall is done, the steel wainscoting is done, the electrical roughing is complete, and now it's time to do the electrical finish work, which is basically just making all the connections, installing the switches, the outlets, the plate covers, the switch covers, and then lighting the circuit back up so that I can have power and light back in this room again, which will be fantastic. So before we get started though, we want to make sure that the circuits are off so we're not accidentally shocking ourselves. So what you'll want to have on hand to test if the electrical circuits are on is what's called a no-touch circuit tester. And I happen to have one right here. It's built into this insulated electrician screwdriver. Basically all I have to do is press the button. You can kind of hear it beep and light up when you first turn it on. And if I put it near the wires, if they were electrified, it would pick up that electric field around the wires and make a beeping noise, and the light would light up as well. Here, I'll spin the camera around real quick so you can kind of see how that works. Put it up near one of my lights here. So he's picking up the electrical field on those lights right there. Anyway, so these circuits are still off, so we're good here. I'm also going to be working down here, so I'll test these down here. We're good to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is install the switch that's going to operate the wall sconce lights right here and then the one down there. And that's this wire right here. It's a pretty simple connection. So the great thing about installing a switch like this is you really don't have to worry too much about which wire goes where. I generally like to put the black wire on top and the white wire on the bottom. But in reality, what a switch does is it basically just connects these two wires together, almost just like you took a wire nut like this and twisted the two of them together. But what the switch allows you to do is to allow electricity to flow through that circuit by flipping the switch on, or shut it off by flipping the switch off. And that's all the switch really does. So what we'll do here is grab our wire strippers, and if you do this often enough, you'll kind of get the hang of how long to strip these back. Say it's about 3/8 of an inch or so. But, you know, like I said, you do it often enough, you'll get the hang of it. You take your switch, and switches like this are usually labeled. This one says top right here. So that means that when you flip it up like that, it turns the light on, down, turns the light off. So I'll just slide this in here like that. And you don't want a bunch of copper wire exposed here, so I stripped that about the exact right amount. Oh, another little tip too, there is a strip gauge on most switches and outlets that'll tell you how long to strip back the electrical wiring. And let's see if I got it right. Yep, pretty much got it exactly right. Anyway, just slide that in there like that. So just go ahead and get these kind of snugged down so they don't really move. You don't have to get them final tight just yet. Okay, and don't forget to connect the ground wire. And the ground wire is going to go on the green ground terminal. And this one, you just need to bend a little loop in the end of the wire and wrap it around. And you always want to bend the loop in the direction you're going to turn the screw, so that as you tighten it down, it kind of closes that loop instead of opening it back up. Otherwise, it might come loose on you. And that's no good. So we'll tighten that down. And again, just go snug right now. And I'll show you why you really only want to go snug just right now. So the next thing we need to do is kind of position this about almost in place, and then I do my final tighten down, because sometimes you're wiggling this around so much you might jiggle these loose, and you want to give it one last tighten down before you kind of finish up. And getting these wires in these boxes is sometimes tricky. One of the best tricks is just kind of do your best to pre-fold it a little bit so that as you shove it in, they kind of collapse down on themselves. And I'm able to shove a little bit of this inside the wall there. But this is often a wrestling match. and can be challenging sometimes. Oh man, especially when you got stiff wire like this. All right, okay, so that's probably going to work just fine. So I will do my final tighten down right now. A good solid connection on these. Okay, and then what I like to do, just for a little added safety, is wrap a little bit of tape around the sides to kind of cover up the terminals. That will help prevent any kind of a electrical short by accident if a wire kind of moved around on you a little bit or something. It's just a little extra cautionary move here. All right. So that looks good. And then we'll go ahead and shove this guy in and do our install. You want to be careful if you're using a power tool driving these screws in. I would go just to where they are almost all the way in and then do the final tighten down by hand, because you might overdrive it and strip out the threads. These boxes are just plastic. Strip out pretty easy. Woohoo! You might need to do some adjusting anyway, side to side. Make sure that's going to fit on the plate cover. When you're doing two, you gotta get them lined up just right. So, got another light switch to do real quick. So, pretty much the same operation here. This one's for the outdoor porch light out there. You want to be careful not to strip back a new section of copper wire unless you have to, because over time, if you don't have a lot of extra slack, which this one I don't, this is it, it's not moving anymore, you might run a little bit of short on wire. So it's better if they're in good shape and they're still good and clean and they're not all looking like they're about to break off or anything, just leave it the way they are. All right, so the next thing is to grab the switch plate cover and kind of get an idea of how this all lines up here. And that actually looks pretty good just the way it is. Yeah, I think I got those kind of lined up just right out of the gate there. The only thing I'll do is just grab a little torpedo level, get an idea if they're straight, and they're not quite, so I'm gonna make a few minor adjustments to get that straight. Yeah, that's good. Good. Yeah, looks pretty good. Make sure these are good and snug. You don't really need to over tighten these. Just get them snug so they don't move. And that is all. And the same idea here too. I'll get these started, the old manual screwdriver, and drive them down most of the way with the electric screwdriver, and then finish them off with the manual screwdriver. That way I don't overdrive them, but also don't spend all day. Okay, so what we have here is actually pretty simple. So these two wires sticking out here are basically your inbound. You've got your hot and your neutral and a ground wire. And then this one here with the yellow jacketing on it is the wire that feeds up into our new wiring up here, which connects to the switch, connects to where the wall sconces are going to go. And then you have these other two sticking out here, which feed into the other outlets on down the row here. Oh, and by the way, this tool here is called a, what is it? A little gripper, a little stripper, something like that. I'll link it up in the description below the video. It was like, I think only about $5, maybe 10. And it's a really, really handy tool for doing electrical work. You can strip back the outer jacketing. You can even strip the shielding on the cable itself. It has a little notch here for tightening down wire nuts. You can cut the paper off that's inside these, that's around the ground wire. And it has these little holes in it for making the loops. It's a real handy tool, and it works really well. You just kind of slide it over like that, and it kind of flays that open for you. And then so it'll kind of trim off the excess there, this little paper. Paper, and trim that off pretty easy. I'm stripping these back just a little bit longer. Let's use my little gripper thing here. Just kind of twist these three together. I'll go ahead and kind of put a little twist in the end here. Okay, so what I'll do is get these started to pre-twist a little bit. And I like to, if they're not perfectly even there, just kind of trim the end a little bit. That way the wire nut gets on there good. And take a larger wire nut, find one, like so. We'll get that started. So what I've done is I've got my hot coming in, and I've connected it to my hot that's leading up to my switch. It's going to power these lights, and giving myself a jumper coming off of it for a second hot. Now again, your hot lead, you want to go to the gold terminal on these. Like I mentioned earlier, with switches it kind of doesn't matter, because all you're really doing is just connecting two ends of a wire together with a switch in between. But on an outlet it does matter, because polarity does matter on an outlet. So hot, black, gold, white, neutral, silver, and then green is ground. So we'll do the same thing for the neutral here. So when I'm doing these wire nuts, I usually strip back maybe closer to an inch, or maybe a little bit more even than an inch. Give those a nice twist, and of course you want to do this in the direction you're going to be tightening the wire nut on, just like when you're doing the loop. That way you're not loosening this kind of pre-twist as you put the wire nut on. Okay. So now basically, you know, if I hook the ground wire up to this one, this outlet would then be hot, you know, and electrified, and then my circuit for my lights would be powered up to once I switch the circuit on. At this point you could kind of stop for a second and flip the circuit on and go test it to make sure you're on the right track. In fact, you know what, I will do that. Do that right now. Go ahead and do my ground connection though, I think. In general, you don't want to put two wires on a single terminal. That's why I'm kind of using this jumper method. And pre-twisting them also kind of helps hold them together for you while you're trying to get the wire nut on. There's a bit of an art to this. So now I've effectively provided a ground for this outlet, a ground for the other outlet I'm going to install, and then also hook the ground up to this wire here that feeds into the switch and these lights and everything. So that is a step in the right direction for sure. What I'm going to do now is take my circuit tester, and if you've seen my videos before, you've seen this or one similar to it. I'll link it up in the description below the video if you want to check one of these out for yourself. But if you are going to do any electrical work, this is almost a must-have. So basically all you do is plug it in, and then when the circuit is powered, a series of lights will come on. There's a diagram here that tell you what the different lights mean depending on how they light up. On this particular unit, we're looking for the orange and the red to light up, and that means everything's wired correctly, which it most certainly should be, but I will go ahead and turn it on real quick and we'll take a look at that. Okay, circuit should be on now. And do we have our orange and red light? Orange, red, we're wired correctly. Okay, I'll turn that back off because I'm not done with it yet. So now what I need to do is another jumper from this outlet to outlet number 2, and then connect these wires that will feed the rest of the outlets on down. So I've got the electricity flowing through this to this one, and then flowing back out it, feeding the rest of them. So we'll do that. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a wrestling match, getting all these in this box. I'll have to push them in with my foot or something, we'll see. Okay, coming down the home stretch here. And again, I'm just going snug, so not really trying to over tighten these by any means just yet. And now finally I'll light up the other outlets on down the line by doing this here. Okay, so that's pretty much it. It'd be the same operation as up here when I did the 2 switches. You'll kind of start to work them in a little bit, do your final tighten down, wrap the sides of the electrical outlets with tape. I would also recommend wrapping a little bit of electrical tape around the wire nuts and on down to the wire just a little bit, just for a little additional support so those don't come loose, especially since we're going to be doing a lot of cramming to get this in here. So it'll get a little tricky, but I'm going to spare you having to sit through watching my little wrestling match here. You've probably seen that a few times already anyway. So what I'll do next is get these in here, get it kind of buttoned up, and then we'll test it out, and that's pretty much it. All right.